What's up, guys? Nostal-Gi-Oh here, back with another Master Duel video. We're talking about the ban list today. We got our first official ban list, Forbidden and Limited list update here for Master Duel. Just came out, I don't know, a couple minutes ago that I saw at least. I'm going into this blind, although we already have 2 hits here, and that's those are pretty good hits off the bat. We're gonna go ahead and look at the whole thing. I'm gonna scroll down. We're gonna look at the whole thing, and then we're gonna talk about it. So. This is all the hits. Well, from what I've heard, I just saw somebody told me about it a second ago, and I looked like very briefly over it. But we're gonna look at it actually now in depth, my opinions on what it is, and my first thoughts. It seems pretty underwhelming, to be honest. We don't see the big hits that we were looking for. The only big hits that we were actually looking for and expecting is Ben 10 to 1. So we're gonna talk about it right now. Ben 10 to 1. And Conquistador at 1. We're going to look at limited, and then we're going to look at semi-limited, and then we're going to look at unlimited in depth. So, Ben 10 and Conquistador. And of course, I'm going to link this down below. I'm seeing it right now on Master Duel Meta. Very reliable source. Link will be in the description down below, so you can go look at it yourself as well. But we're going to start looking into it. So, Ben 10 to 1. We saw this in the TCG. The deck has been a viable deck ever since. You know, that wasn't a very big hit. Now we've seen multiple other hits. Since then, we saw Eva to 1, and now Eva is banned in the current TCG. So in Master Duel, Ben 10 going to 1, it's a big hit, right? It's a pretty good key to consistency is that triple Ben 10. So hitting it to 1 is a pretty good hit to the consistency overall. However, it doesn't really hit the power of the deck. You know, we were kind of really... I mean, Ben 10 to 1 is the fair first hit that we are expecting to the deck. You know, without DPE, the deck's not going to be Scythe locking. It's still going to be just Herald of Perfection, but it's going to be a little less consistent. This is going to make it so that, you know, they very rarely will open the Ben 10 to Tribute off of for Alpha or, you know, their first name. So this will make it more, you know, susceptible to 1 to 2 hand traps, which makes, you know, 1 Ash actually shut down the deck occasionally. But here I say occasionally, we still have like triple, you know, Nova, all the consistency cards. It's just going to be Ben 10 to 1. And then looking over this entire list, there are no other hits to the consistency of Ben 10 or to Drytron. So it's just Ben 10 to 1. I think this is a fair hit. I actually personally I love this hit. I think this is exactly what we were looking for Drytron, you know, without murdering the deck before DPE comes out. This is a very fair hit to this deck, and I think this was a really good way of doing it. We already saw this in TCG, and it was a good hit the first time in TCG as well. Next, we have Conquistador of the Golden Land to 1, and also we're looking at this list, and there are no other hits to Eldritch, so this is the only hit. I think this is kind of a pointless hit, to be honest. I think if you were... you know, like, this isn't that crazy. This is a cool hit, like, to be honest, it hits the consistency just barely. Not enough to really be that big of a hit. I think this is kind of like a subpar hit. But honestly, I don't think the deck needed hit at all. The only things in that deck that I think needed hit were Floodgates themselves. Maybe like Skill Drain back a little. I hate that card. Everybody hates that card. Everybody hates Floodgates in general. I think Skill Drain to 3 was a mistake. However... this won't really change the deck's playability at all, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, you know, you have a little less floatability. You have Halquero is like a pretty weak trap a lot of the time, so hitting Conquistador to 1 definitely takes away a bit of its consistency as well as its, you know, longevity throughout the game. Hitting Conquistador to 1, fair hit. I don't think that was the right hit. But I mean, I think hitting like Sanguine to 1 would have been like, would have just shot the deck in the foot and made it like pretty bad, or shot it in the leg, right? This shot it in the foot. The other one would have shot it in the leg, would have actually hurt the deck. This doesn't really hurt the deck that much. I don't think this is a really good hit. This is a weird hit. Maybe like Eldland was already a 2. This going to 1, it just hurts the consistency of it a little bit, and like the longevity as we were saying, but that's really it. I think this deck's equally playable as it was before, maybe a little less playable with like, you know, the less popping in the deck, but it's not really that big of a hit. And looking over the whole list, I mean, none of the decks will really hit that much. So yeah, that's our limits. You know, my looking at this, Drytron's still perfectly fine. You know, it does hit the consistency and makes it a little more susceptible to hand traps. Conquistador just hits a little bit of longevity. That's really it. You don't really have any ways to recycle this. So once you know you go through the Conquistador once, you know you're kind of safe. But they still have access to this card on turn 1 and turn 2 very easily. So kind of weird hit, but oh well. The deck has a little bit less consistency now. I think just like Skill Drain back to 1 would have been better, in my opinion. But I'm not a Floodgates guy. I hate them. I even have the deck fully together on Master Duel, and I hate to see this. So whatever. Next we have semi-limited cards, and we're gonna like look at them all individually, but I'm gonna look at them all right now first. So DD Dynamite to 2, we have Sekka's Light to 2, we have Fusion Destiny to 2, which is kind of weird, but it's definitely preemptive, which is good. This means DPE is coming very soon, I would think, so that's cool. Next we have Phantom Knight Torn Scales to 2. I think this is fine, but you should have just banned Rongo, 5-head, probably. Fractal to 2, and Cobalt Sparrow to 2. So for the entire bird up strategy, I think this is a solid hit. I don't think the deck need to hit too much because we do have Max C in the format, which really hurts combo decks, like the bird up deck in general. So I think this is an interesting hit. But Fractal to 2 is good for the actual Tri-Brigade deck, which is kind of just running things right now. We have the Tri-Brigade Zodiac form or deck really kind of killing it in the format, even though I think it's not the strongest deck. I think it's just a very consistent deck, and it always will do its thing, even through like Maxi and stuff, which is fair. I like Fractal to 2. I think that's a solid hit. It's not really much of a hit, but it's there. We still have 3 Tenki, so like we still have more than what we do in current TCG of Fractal. So like, who even cares really? I feel like this is a who even cares really hit. Next we have Lao Lao to 2. This is another weird one. Just not really much of a hit in general. 2 Roxy's, which is weird. This is like the least playable one. This is the one we didn't really care about. You should have just hit Meow Meow to 1 like in TCG. Like, weird. And then Analyzer to 2, which is another hit that I'm like, cool. Like, what did this accomplish, right? There's a lot of builds that only play 2 Analyzer anyway. Like, this was a dumb hit. And then Unlimited Red MD. Cool, right? Cool. Anyway, let's look at these a little bit more in depth. So DD Dynamite to 2 is so dumb. This is really dumb. We already have 3 Trap Trick. Like, hitting this card to 2 was useless. You should have hit this card to 1. That would have made the deck like unfun to use, because you can't just like Trap Trick. You're still playing 5 copies of this card essentially because you have 3 Trap Trick. So I don't agree with this hit. I don't agree with DD Dynamite to 2. I think it was like that's like the slightest hit to consistency that makes this deck not any less playable. Honestly, just not any less playable. This was a bad hit, Konami. Why did you do this? Why did you put DD Dynamite to 2? You should put it as 1. If you put this card to 1 or Banquet to 1, then you would have effectively hit the deck. Hitting this to 2, like, you didn't do anything. Sex is Light to 2. This is an interesting one. I think if this card at 2, from 3, like, already playing this card at 3, playing it over called buys and crossouts was already, like, you could have played either way, right? The Sekka's Light's really powerful, but you still, like, die to a Max C. When I think the Sekka's Light, like, this was a good hit. I think this was a good hit. Hitting Sekka's Light to 2, kind of, it really begs the question, do you play Sekka's Light, or do you actually play the crossouts and called buys now? I think now we just play called buys and crossouts and call it a day, and we're like, yay, okay, we're still playing Adamantipator best deck, in my opinion. So, like, I don't think this was much of a hit, but I do like this hit. I think, because this actually, like, makes you think, oh, should I play it? Because if they put Sekka's Light to 1, like, we wouldn't play it. We would just be like, okay, cool, we'll just play called by and stuff. But now with Sekka's Light to 2, it actually, like, begs the question, should I play the Sekka's Light still? I'm not personally. I think, my first like, attempt at playing Adamantipator again post list is just gonna play called buys and knocks or crossouts and just call it a day, right? Like, I'm not even gonna be mad at Sekka's Light to go to 2 because I'm just not gonna play it now. But I think this is still, like, definitely playable in the deck. And other decks like BA and stuff they'll probably just cut it. Like, it's fine. At 2, I think this is a fair hit. Fusion Destiny, this is definitely preemptive. I like that hit. Fusion Destiny at 2 in the current TCG is fair. With Verte, it's broken. But Fusion Destiny at 2, I think it's very fair, because then you're playing 2 power spells and 2 bricks in your deck. When we take DPE, you play Celestial and Dasher. So you're playing 2 spells and 2 bricks. You still have Vert. So, like, this is just like a cool hit. This just means we get DPE soon, which I'm happy about. And if you don't know, if you're not a TCG player, DPE is Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer, a very powerful new fusion. Look it up. You guys will be like, oh, geez, this card seems kind of underwhelming. But then when you play the game, you say, oh, wow, this card is insane, right? It's quick play pop every turn. But the crazy thing is putting Celestial and Dasher in the grave, so you have a Pot of Greed later in the game. It's very powerful. Next, we have Torrent Scale to 2. I think this is an interesting hit, not the hit that I would say. I mean, I already voiced the opinion. I think Rongo should have just been banned. But I think Rongo's fair. Honestly, in the PK deck, yeah, it's pretty stupid when it happens. But honestly, like, it don't always happen. Because, you know, they go, like, for the bamboozling play, and then you're just, oh, effect veiler, oh, imperm, oh, scoop. You know, like, that happens a lot of the time, too. So I think this is a fair hit, honestly. You know, you just wanted to tap the consistency. I get it. But I don't think this was the right tap to consistency. Like, this is fine. I think PK players are just like, cool. You know, whatever. Like, I don't really care. They're just going to keep playing the deck. I don't think this changes anything. Fractal 2, this is interesting. This is a neat little hit to consistency. I would have said Tanky to 1. If you're gonna try to hit the consistency of that deck, I would have definitely said Tanky to 1 was the correct hit, not Fractal to 2. I feel like this is just such a little tap to consistency. It's just not that big. And I'm fine with just a tap to consistency across the board of decks, but we have decks like Adamantipator where if you just tap the consistency a little bit, that deck is fine. That deck is just going to keep going. They don't care, right? So I think if we're just going to tap the consistency on every one of these decks, I think we had to tap the consistency harder on the decks that are a little bit scarier, right? And I think Fractal 2 is just like the slightest little slap on the wrist. Like, this is the wrist of Tri-Brigade. That's all you did. Oh, good, effective, right? I don't think it was that big of a deal. Next, we have Lao 2. This is another one that is like not that big of a hit to the consistency. If you are actually looking to hit the consistency in this game, Pot of Desires to 1 was the answer, or even to 2, honestly. Lao 2 is not that big, but Virtual World definitely has consistency issues. So furthering those issues is a solid way to hit the deck. I definitely think VFD ban was the correct option. But they're not going for a big ban list. This was not a nuke list by any means. This was a ouch, right? That's what this list was. Except for Ben 10. That was the only hit to the consistency that actually matters on this list. Like, I think every one of these hits is a little hit to consistency that doesn't really matter. Like, that's honestly my opinion. Cobalt Sparrow 2 is like a really weird one because a lot of variants don't even play 3 Cobalt Sparrow. If you're playing the Heavy Birds, you're probably playing 3 of this card. Your list is like 3 Warbler, 3 Sparrow, 2 of the other ones, right? Like 2 Canary, 2 Celestial, 2 of all of them, right? So I think this is a fine hit. Not really a meaningful hit. I think if you are looking to actually hit the consistency of the deck, Bird Call to 1, boom, you're good. Tanky to 1, like, boom, you're good. Like, I don't know. I don't agree with these taps to consistency because they're like, that's all they were. Next we have the 2 Prank Kids Roxys. This is a card that people were already cutting down in the Prank Kids list. Like, in current TCG, a lot of players are playing 1 Roxys. Like, or 2. Like, I don't think this was the right... This is already the weakest one. This is the worst one. The one that if you're playing less than 3 of every kid, this is the one you're already cutting to 2. So, like, I just don't see it. And same with the Analyzer. Like, people were already cutting this card to 2. Like, I don't really see the point to a lot of these hits. They were like the slightest taps to consistency. I think, okay, so this ban list could have gone 2 different ways, right? It could have gone tap to consistency, hit the consistency, actually hit the consistency, or a nuke list, right? That's really what I expected to see on this list. And this list feels very underwhelming to me personally, because it's just taps to consistency. The only one that's actually meaningful is the Ben 10 to 1 and the Conquistador to 1. Like, I think those were fair. I think the right way to hit each deck, and I will talk to them. Also, Unlimited Red MD, it was already a 2. It's a hard once per turn. Most players would only play 1 to 2 in their deck anyway. I think most players opted to play 1 anyway. So this going to 3, it's like fine, right? Like, that's cool. Like, that card deserves to be a 3 already. It's the errata. It already deserved to be a 3. I don't think this was, like, even really warranted to be at 2 in the first place. But sure, right? Like, cool. It's fine at 3. I don't think this is really a meaningful hit. Like, I'll play Dragon Link. I play 1. You can, like, play it 2, because, Darkness Metal is not a hard once per turn, or the Black Metal, the baby one, that searches this guy. So you can go, summon it, link it off into Striker Dragon, search that card, special summon it by banishing the Striker Dragon, special back the other guy, the Black Metal, and then link those off into your spheres, and then you can search the second one. So, like, that's understandable, and like, this card to 3 is cool. Like, that's cool, but it doesn't really change anything in the game, in my opinion. So overall, my overall thoughts of this list is a big thumbs down. Honestly, I think this was just like, this isn't going to change the meta really at all, right? Drytron will have a little tap to consistency, or like a big tap to consistency. Ben 10 to 1 is good, but you know, them showing us Fusion Destiny to 2 means that DPE is coming soon, and then the deck is just going to Cypher everybody anyway. So you know, I don't really see this as a huge hit, but it's fine. They still loop it, right? You still go bring out the Ben 10. You're probably gonna start playing E to 10 now. You go tribute your Ben 10 for a name. Ben 10's gonna search a card, and then you go summon E to 10 or summon the Ben 10 from your grave by tributing the E to 10, and then you summon back the E to 10 by tributing the Ben 10. And then you get another search. So like that's already a pretty standard play. I think hitting this to 1 is a good hit. I like it. The only hit that I think here is what was the correct hit is the Ben 10 to 1. Honestly, I think all the other ones were a little tap. Now let's say very quickly what I think the taps should have been. What the hits to consistency should have been. DD Dynamite or Banquet to 1 would have been good. This card to 2. It doesn't really change much. Seconds Light to 2. I like this. I like this hit. That's a good hit because this makes you actually consider, the downside. This makes you think about the deck, right? Because when you're playing 3 Seconds Light, it's like very strong, and already people were considering the cross out, called by list or build anyway. So I think Seconds Light to 2 is cool. I like that hit. But I think you need to hit the deck further. I think like hitting any of the names to 1 as well. But I really think, it should have been an axe list. We should have seen ban Block Dragon. This isn't really going to shake up the meta. What is going to shake up the meta is DPE coming. Honestly, that's like what it is. Give us the updated cards. Give us all the updated cards. And then we can get a list once we have all our cards. I like that idea. But I think the taps should have been better. Torn Scales, if you're not going to go the axe list, if you went the big ban hammer, the nuke list, Rango would have gotten banned. Block Dragon would have gotten banned. VFD would have gotten banned. And that's probably it. Meow Meow would have gone to 1. That's really it. I don't think VFD would have gotten banned. Yeah. But I don't think this deck would have like gotten hit like really at all. I already am kind of surprised that it's the quote-unquote best deck in the game, because I just don't think it's nearly as powerful as the other decks, but I guess it plays like more like better under a resolved Max C, but none of these decks want you to resolve Max C anyway. So yeah, that's like a weird hit. But I think the hit here, or I think the hit on PK probably should have been like, honestly, I think Rango ban was the only proper hit to PK, because hitting Torn Scales to 2 and even hitting it to 1 wasn't really that big of a deal. So I think like Torn Scales to 2 is weird. It's just weird. Then Fractal, this should have been tanky to 1. Like really, this should have been tanky to 1, because that would have hit like all the decks as well, like Lunalight variant, this variant, the Zoo variant, all of the variants would have gotten hit like more. Would have gotten hit better. Fractal to 2 is just like not that big of a deal. Lao to 2 is like okay, I guess. I think if you were looking for a real hit to the consistency, Pot of Desires to 1 would have been better. We saw that in the TCG, and that's a really big hit to the deck actually in the TCG. But I like Desires at 3. I don't think Desires to 1 was a really good hit in the real game either. So I don't think that would have translated here. I don't think anything in the virtual world strategy should have gotten hit except VFD. Like VFD ban was what it should have been. But if we're not going for the nuke list, I think virtual world should have just not gotten touched. Like Lao to 2 is like, it's like a whatever hit, right? You could have put emergency teleport to 1 or something. Lao to 2 is a weird hit. Cobalt Sparrow to 2 is a really weird hit too. I think Bird Call to 1 would have been really fair. But whatever, that's fine. Like I'm okay with this. Or Recital to 1, but that would have been like a really big hit. Right? So like whatever. Roxy's to 2 is it makes me feel like I feel like this is irrelevant. I think every Prank Kid player will say okay, and then cut it and then put in a staple and feel like indifferent about it. And then Analyzer to 2, same. I just don't think this was a big hit. But really what I was looking for was a nuke list. I was expecting a nuke list. I was expecting Block Dragon ban, VFD ban, Ben 10 to 1 was kind of what I was expecting on Drytron. Maybe also Eva to 1, something like that along those lines. And then like Prank Meow Meow to 1, Tenki to 1, DD Dynamite and Banquet ban, because those cards, I hate the deck. Like everybody hates that deck. Everybody hates that deck for like hates it. Like it's dumb. Just take it out of the game. That's really my opinion. I don't think Eldritch needed a hit. If they were going to hit that, I think Skill Drain to 1 was the proper hit. Because I don't think we should have 3 Skill Drain anyway, because it's stupid. Card of Demise would have been a better hit. Hit that card to 1 or 2. Probably to 1. Hit it to 1. That's the proper hit. So yeah, I think, overall, the list is fine. If they're gonna do what I was saying, if they're gonna add all the new cards into the game, give us this little tap, then, you know, we're gonna get a nice shakeup. It's gonna hit the consistency to all the decks, but we're gonna get DPE and stuff. So I think that would be a great way for us to get all the new cards. And like I said, Fusion Destiny 2 is really, really showing off that hit. And then yeah, and then we'll get a nuke list down the line a little bit, right? We'll get all of our new cards, and then they'll actually hit cards on the list, right? Because I think the game is still fairly new, and they're not really doing much for the game right now. So I think that was the right hits. I don't think this was the right hits. But if they add in the new cards and then give us an axe list down the road, or a nuke list down the road, sure, that's cool. That's cool with me. That's cool with me. I'm happy with this. If they do that, if they don't give us the new cards like very soon, I'm gonna have to give this one a big thumbs down. It just didn't really change as much of the meta. It's weird. Ben 10-1 was right. Seconds Light to 2 was cool. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of this list down below. If you guys hated my opinion, tell me. If you like my opinion, tell me. All that kind of stuff. That's it for the video. Thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I already said that, but do it. Don't do it twice, because if you like hit subscribe and then hit the button, you're unsubscribe. So maybe do it 3 times, right? Like, subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe, or just subscribe. Skip the middleman. Anyway, that's it. Have a good day. Goodbye.